The Grand Hall of the International Youth Leadership Summit hummed with energy, its atmosphere charged with anticipation. Delegates from over 50 nations, journalists armed with cameras and notebooks, and young leaders eager to make their mark filled every corner of the expansive auditorium. The event, an annual gathering of some of the brightest minds from around the world, had become a symbol of hope and innovation. This year, however, the excitement wasn't solely about the ideas to be discussed. It was about one individual, Barron Trump. Barron, the youngest son of President Donald Trump, was a figure of intrigue. At just 18 years old, he had spent most of his life in the background, shunning the spotlight that his family often courted. His rare public appearances had only deepened the mystery surrounding him, and his towering height, over 2 meters, gave him an almost mythic presence. Today, seated among a panel of accomplished young leaders, Barron was stepping into the spotlight on his own terms. He was dressed impeccably in a tailored navy suit, his red tie, a subtle nod to his father's iconic look, offering the only visible connection to his family's legacy. Yet as the camera zoomed in on his composed face, it was clear that this moment was about Barron as an individual, not as a reflection of his family. His sharp features, piercing blue eyes, and calm demeanor commanded attention, and the room seemed to hold its collective breath in anticipation of what he might say. The panel included activists, entrepreneurs, and innovators, all of whom had earned recognition for their work. But despite their impressive resumes, it was Barron who dominated the room. The audience, composed of young visionaries, diplomats, and journalists, buzzed with curiosity. Who was Barron Trump beyond the shadow of his father's name? Would he echo his father's polarizing rhetoric, or would he chart a path of his own? The moderator, an experienced host known for his ability to engage audiences and navigate high-profile discussions, stepped forward to introduce the panelists. After briefly highlighting the achievements of the other speakers, he turned his attention to Barron. His voice, rich and commanding, echoed through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, gesturing toward the young man seated at the center of the stage. "Our next panelist needs little introduction. His name is known worldwide, but today he speaks not as a reflection of his family, but as an individual with his own vision for the future. Please join me in welcoming Barron Trump." The applause was immediate and thunderous, reverberating off the high ceilings. Photographers angled their cameras to capture his every movement as Barron rose from his seat. He moved with deliberate confidence, buttoning his suit jacket as he approached the podium. Despite the intensity of the moment, his expression remained calm. He adjusted the microphone slightly, his tall frame leaning forward ever so slightly as he prepared to speak. "Thank you," he began, his deep voice steady and resonant. "It's an honor to be here today among so many remarkable young leaders. This summit is not just a platform to speak, it's an opportunity to listen, to learn, and to collaborate. Because the challenges we face today are bigger than any one person, any one country, or even any one generation. They demand collective action." The room fell silent, captivated by his words. Unlike some of the other speakers, who relied on animated gestures and impassioned rhetoric, Barron's delivery was calm, measured, and reflective. Yet it was this very quality that made his presence so compelling. The problems we face, climate change, inequality, political polarization, are not new, he continued. They've been building for decades, and they won't be solved overnight. But that doesn't mean we should accept them as inevitable. As young people, we have a responsibility to act. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now, because the choices we make today will define the world we inherit tomorrow. The applause that followed was polite but subdued, as though the audience needed time to fully absorb the weight of his words. Barron nodded slightly, then stepped back to his seat as the discussion moved forward. Throughout the panel, Barron's presence remained magnetic. While other speakers shared animated stories and ambitious proposals, he spoke sparingly, choosing his words with care. His contributions, though brief, were impactful. He spoke about the role of education in fostering equality, the ethical dilemmas posed by rapid technological advancements, and the importance of bridging divides in an increasingly polarized world. Each time he spoke, the room grew quieter, hanging on his every word. But it was during the Q&A session that Barron delivered the moment that would define the event, and dominate headlines worldwide. A seasoned journalist from a prominent international news outlet raised her hand and was handed the microphone. Her expression was sharp, her tone measured as she addressed Barron directly. "Mr. Trump," she began, her voice cutting through the room, "you've grown up surrounded by privilege, wealth, power, and opportunities that most people can only dream of. How can someone like you truly understand the struggles of ordinary people? And, perhaps more importantly, what does your future look like? Will you follow in your father's footsteps, or will you carve out a path of your own?" The question hung in the air, its pointed nature undeniable. The room tensed immediately, the audience waiting in silence. Cameras zoomed in on Barron, eager to capture his reaction. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the table in front of him. The pause that followed was deliberate, a moment of reflection that only heightened the anticipation in the room. "Thank you for your question," he began, his voice calm but firm. "You're right. I've been fortunate in ways that most people haven't. I've had opportunities that many can only dream of, and I recognize that. But privilege, at its core, isn't a badge of honor. It's a responsibility." The audience remained silent, hanging on his every word. Even the journalist seemed momentarily disarmed by his poise. "It's true that I haven't experienced many of the struggles that millions of people face every day," Barron continued, his tone growing more reflective. "I haven't had to worry about whether I can afford rent, put food on the table, or access basic health care. But leadership isn't about pretending to understand every hardship firsthand. It's about listening to those who do. It's about amplifying the voices of those who often go unheard and using whatever platform you have to fight for solutions that benefit everyone, not just the privileged few." His words hung in the air, resonating deeply. The audience remained captivated, their attention unwavering as he continued to speak. "Privilege to me is not just about what you have. It's about what you choose to do with it. I don't see my background as a free pass to success or a reason to ignore the struggles of others. Instead, I see it as an obligation, a reminder that I have been given tools, access, and opportunities that must be used to help those who haven't been as fortunate." He paused briefly, his blue eyes scanning the audience, ensuring that his message landed with each individual in the room. His voice grew steadier, his conviction evident. "You asked how I can understand the struggles of ordinary people. The truth is, I don't have all the answers, and I don't claim to. But that doesn't mean I won't try. I can learn, I can listen, and I can stand with those who fight for fairness, equity, and justice. Leadership isn't about knowing everything. It's about being willing to learn, to adapt, and to serve." The audience shifted slightly, some nodding in agreement. Even the journalist who had posed the question appeared impressed, her sharp expression softening as Barron continued. "As for my future," he said, addressing the second part of the question, "it's not about following in anyone's footsteps, not even my father's. His legacy is his own, and I respect that. But my journey is about finding my own path, about building something meaningful in my own way." His voice gained strength as he elaborated. "I want to focus on creating opportunities for others, whether that's through improving access to education, supporting innovative technologies that benefit underserved communities, or addressing systemic issues like inequality and climate change. My goal is simple: to make a meaningful impact. The journey ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: it's not about me. It's about the people I can serve along the way." The room erupted into applause, louder and more sustained than at any other point during the summit. Some attendees rose to their feet in a spontaneous standing ovation, their admiration for Barron's poise and maturity evident. Even the journalist nodded in approval, a faint smile playing on her lips. As Barron stepped back from the microphone, the applause continued, echoing through the grand hall. His words had not only answered the question, but had also left an indelible impression on everyone present. Clips of his response quickly went viral, sparking discussions on social media and dominating news cycles. Headlines ranged from Barron Trump steps out of the shadows to a leader in the making. For those who had dismissed him as simply Donald Trump's youngest son, the speech served as a wake-up call. Critics and supporters alike acknowledged the depth, humility, and thoughtfulness he had displayed. When asked later about the overwhelming praise and media attention, Barron remained characteristically humble. "Words are easy," he said simply. "The real challenge is turning them into action." And with that, Barron Trump had not only stepped into the spotlight, he had redefined what it meant to carry his name, proving that leadership is about more than legacy. It's about purpose, empathy, and the courage to forge your own path. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to grow. What would you have done if you were in his shoes? Let us know in the comments below.